Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Richard. I had a very strange dream, and I'm going to have a drink and I'm going to talk about it. Non-alcoholic, because I have some driving to do today. It's early in the morning. I would sober up in time to drive, but dust. I would sober up in time to drive, but it's just doesn't matter. If I'm going to drive, I'm not going to drink. Responsible drinker. It's one of those things. But yeah, I mean, I sleep during the day. I woke up 5 minutes before midnight, and I had this terrible dream. And the fact that my dreams are lucid is a good thing. Okay? A lucid dream is not necessarily bad. A lot of people reported lucid dreams during the pandemic because they were finally getting enough sleep. Lucid dreams are a sign of deeper sleep, and some people believe that a dream is the brain rationalizing irrational concepts. So, lucid dreams essentially better ground the mind. It gets your head to wrap around things the way it's supposed to. Okay? Now, this particular dream involved two rooms in my house. The first one was the bedroom I slept in as a child, which is now my workroom. And the second one is this room, the studio, which was originally the nursery. It is defined as the nursery because if you were in this room, you would look to my right here, and you would see that there are shelves and, basically a vanity built into the wall so that it can't fall over. And the reason for that is because a toddler will crawl on furniture and knock it over, and this will tend to be a bad thing. So a proper nursery has furniture tacked to the wall so it cannot fall. This is, of course, California, and we should probably tack all of our furniture to the wall so it does not fall, but that's beside the point. Anyway, so I've lived in this house my whole life. My family used to live with me, and I honestly have nightmares about them returning. They want me to start paying them rent for living in this house. The house is owned by a trust, and only the trust would be able to make that decision. And, it's so long as the trust doesn't dissolve, it's in no dice. It's never going to happen. But I had a nightmare that, a family member came here and rented out my workroom to a Japanese man. He was a nice Japanese man. It reminded me of a friend I had back in grade school. Japanese American, grew up in America. And this particular figment of my imagination didn't talk much, but he was working on two old computers that had clearly been repurposed from earlier computers. They were the brand of computer that I had when I was in high school, which was a Compaq. Compaq was a big computing company back in the day. I don't believe they exist anymore. And then the computer that I work on was sitting in a corner on a shelf. And all of my books were gone. All of my belongings were gone. All of my pets were gone. This is a nightmare, Then the whole thing reset, and this room was remodeled. They had added a wall, and it was bare walls. There wasn't any furniture, but there were looked kind of like a guard shack I worked in back about 15 years ago, uh, mid 2000s, and all of my books were gone. And I was screaming at my family members, "Where are my cameras? Where are my cameras?" Which includes the camera that I'm filming on now. And I mean, look, there's maybe $1,500 worth of camera equipment in this room. It's not very expensive equipment. You know, uh, back in the day when I first got into photography, I can tell you, you know, people. I went to the camera shop and the guy told me, look, any camera you buy, any lens you buy that's worth anything, is probably going to be worth more than the camera, And it's like, was not uncommon for you to buy $1,000 camera, and then a couple years later you buy $1,000 lens, but the camera's no longer worth $1,000 because it's used, and it may have been replaced by a better model. So it's just one of those things, but it's like, yeah, I would say that, I feel like I'm not in very great control of my life. I never have felt that. One of the things that used to happen to me as a child is that I would have these dreams where my hands were cut off. And it's common to have that kind of a feeling because you feel like you cannot better your situation. And, that's one of those things about modern life. The more the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and it becomes harder and harder for the poor to better their situation. I mean, there used to be a time, I remember I had a friend, 2004 maybe, 2005, and he was a printer, Not anymore. He was a security guard, but he had worked his whole life as a printer, Before computers, he had been a printer. And there was one day he got fired. They laid off half of his staff, And they gave him a severance, I think, of 3 months' pay. And, he collected his check and he put it in his wallet. And he walked down the street to the nearest printing company and said, "I just got laid off. Do you need a printer?" And he specialized in layouts. So what it was he was the guy that made the negatives that were used to expose the printing plate. This was offset printing. So what you have is basically you have what looks like a film negative, and you put it on a plate that has emulsification on it. You expose that to bright light, then you treat it with a solution, and you wind up with the plate having a picture of what it is you want to print. And that picture is what catches the ink and puts it on the paper. So yeah, old process. It's still in use, but it's getting more and more rare. And so he was unemployed for about 15 minutes. The company said, "Hey, yeah, we've got a place for you. Go to room so-and-so on the second floor, and there's the workshop, and just say, hey, I'm new, give me a project. If you know any friends who need a job, call them over because we've got a couple positions open." That was the world he lived in until the turn of the century. And I can tell you, in 2002, I used to get the newspaper and I'd look at the want ads. And there would be maybe 3 or 4 columns of security companies looking for guards. And now, even if I go on Indeed, you see a couple of companies, a handful of them, maybe a dozen. And these are the companies, And that's the thing, is that there was a time in your life, if you lost your job, there were hundreds of companies. All you had to do was want another job. You basically make phone calls. Hey, you got anything? Yeah, sure, come over. Or no, okay, well, call the next person. And that's how the world used to work. Also, if you had a job, it meant you could afford an apartment back then. Now, that's just not the case. So it's one of those things with me, I'm in line for a couple of jobs. I had an interview earlier, or I had an interview yesterday, in fact, for a job. It wasn't a good job, but it was a job. And it was a part-time job, so I was not going to be able to pay my bills doing that job, but it's better than nothing. And, you look at them and you say, okay, well, let me go do that job, right? But, there was the first interview I went through, which was over the phone. There was the second interview I went through, which was on Skype. And now there's a third interview, which I think is in person, that I have to go to get this crummy job that is part-time and really just low quality. And even then, the interview I was supposed to go to on Skype, or whatever it is now, like Microsoft Teams or some sort of video conference site, was supposed to be a group interview. There were supposed to be, a half dozen of us, and it was supposed to take an hour, and it wound up only taking 20 minutes because there was only one person there, And I sat there thinking, why didn't you wait a couple of days till you had more people, or can you not find people? Which is a good sign for me. It means that I'm more likely to get the job, but it's a bad sign for the company that, people aren't applying to it. So yeah, this dream was an illustration, my mind illustrating to my consciousness that I can't, or I'm having trouble bettering myself. Which many Americans are having that problem. So I decided to get the most out of it and make a video. And you know what? I feel better. Before I go, of course, let me remind you that for every 1,000 subscribers I get, I do purchase one of these bracelets from 4Ocean. 4Ocean pulls a pound of trash out of the ocean every time I do that. You'd be so kind as to come and like and subscribe if you're doing your part for a better world. But, over with that. Dreams fade in the mind. This one did not. This one did not. This one did not because more of my mind was awake. But it was one heck of a dream. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. I'm Richard.
Oogog, Ergonog. Daniel Ducky say YouTube gods need long outro so I can tell you comment, like, and subscribe so that this channel can pull trash out of ocean by buying matrices from 4Ocean. Also, links to new video now appear. Comment, like, and subscribe, or be cursed by Ugatha. Danger Ducky approves.